Tetris is a pure experience of making this puzzle, and there's no characters, there's really nothing too special about it. It's just this pure experience. And that's what made it universally loved.
Even if you don't like video games, odds are you've played Tetris. It's not only the best-selling video game of all time, it might also be the most addictive game ever. But you're probably not as into Tetris as Box Brown is.
What's going on, man? Dexter, good to meet you.
He wrote a whole comic book about it, and it comes out today. I visited Box's home studio in Philadelphia to find out why Tetris deserves its very own origin story. Why did you decide that Tetris needed a book?
The story of Tetris kind of got buried, but it's a really amazing story. Alexei Pajitnov created Tetris in the early 80s on a computer with no graphics. He played this game, Pentominoes, which is the pieces of Tetris, but you're just placing them in a puzzle box. So he imagined these pieces falling from the sky, and the player would have to maneuver them as they're falling so they land in the right spot. And that's it, really.
And so at this point, he's still in Russia, working for the government.
Yeah, he's doing this all in his spare time. It's his passion in life, though, I think. He makes this game and gives it to some of his friends. So people would copy it onto their computer, give the disc to their friend. Within 2 weeks after him giving it to a few friends, they say that every office in Moscow had Tetris on. Like every computer in every office in Moscow had Tetris already.
Do you have any theory about that? Why is it so addictive?
Okay, so I talked to a scientist about this. The thing that makes Tetris so addicting is that the brain is given a task. Something is lit up in the brain, and that doesn't get resolved until you complete the task. But once you complete the task, you get a new task. So it's like this constant feeding of your brain, where you get a task and your brain's like, oh, I gotta accomplish this task. And then you get this satisfaction of accomplishing the task. So it's like constantly exciting that part of the brain every time you get a new piece. So it becomes like a cult hit. Alexei, who is living in a communist society, has no aspirations to sell this.
Well, he couldn't.
Yeah, he couldn't. He couldn't because communist Russia business was the business of the government.
So how did that even get outside?
There's another computer center in Hungary doing the same type of thing, and they sent Tetris there. In Hungary, it's capitalist society, so they would have like a computer festival at the university. This guy, Robert Stein from England, came across Tetris. He sees it and he's like, oh, I actually am terrible at video games. Even though that's his job, he was terrible at video games. But he played Tetris and he couldn't get it out of his mind. He was like, I need this game. The Hungarian people contacted Alexei's boss, were like, this person wants this game. They did some kind of like back and forth about the rights to the game, and Robert Stein assumed he had the rights and released the game for computer in the UK, and it was an enormous success. Enormous. But technically, he didn't have the rights. All the success kind of was going on without the Russian government even really knowing about it. Once they realized that they had to figure out a way to get paid. This guy, Belikov, he has to do all these negotiations, and he knows that Gorbachev is watching, and if he screws up these negotiations, he's screwed. Like, he's going to jail. And so all of this negotiations is happening. Belikov is meeting with these three individuals all on the same day.
So hold on, let me see.
Yeah.
So
it's super confusing.
Yeah. So there was a bidding war for Tetris.
The Russians didn't know much about negotiating. They just kind of like acted tough and always asked for more money. So they had all these negotiations, and it actually didn't get sorted out until a US judge got involved. What happens is this judge gets to make the final decision. So it's all this crazy stuff happens. Nintendo ends up getting the rights, the Game Boy comes out, it becomes this huge, huge success, and Alexei Pajitnov is left kind of in the cold.
For a long time, he doesn't see any money out of it, but you were saying he wasn't interested in that.
You know, this is what happens to every piece of art now in capitalist society. You make a piece of art for yourself or for whatever reason because of inspiration, and then it gets taken away from you and becomes something that you have no control over.
What is it about Tetris that you've decided that this is what I'm going to use to have this discussion about art?
An artist's job, in a way, is to help people get in touch with something inside of themselves. And I think games are a way to get your brain thinking in a different way and can inspire you. The reason Tetris is such a good example is because it's something that almost anyone can relate to. It's so simple, yet so challenging and so compelling and so universal. It doesn't even require a language. I think it's in that way that we relate to it, in universal ways.